Welcome to episode 43 of the Civil War Breakfast Club podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mary, the Queen of Kincardine, Ontario. And I am just Darren once again. And Mary, how are you on this very special episode we're doing tonight?
I'm good, and you are not just Darren because you've organized something really awesome for us for this episode.
Well, I don't know if I organize it, but today's a special night because we have a special guest today. And before we bring him in, let me tell you something. So, I go to Gettysburg and I go to Maryland and Virginia way more than I should, many times a year. I live in Massachusetts. And whenever I get down there, I don't feel like I'm home until I see my first Civil War Trail sign. When I'm driving down the road, I see it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. And so everybody knows the Civil War Trails. Everybody knows the all the stuff they do. So we are going to be doing a fundraiser to help raise some money for them. And we thought it'd be cool to do a special episode tonight with our friend Chris Brown from Civil War Trails, who's joining us tonight on the Epic podcast to talk about Civil War Trails. So, Chris, it is an honor to have you on our silly little show.
It's a delight to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome, Chris. It's great to have you here to do this, and it's great to be doing some fundraising for you guys as well.
Yeah, so everybody knows Civil War Trails. I mean, there's some great things. I'm holding a brochure right here. The wind's going to blow it away, everybody gets these, and you could find these on eBay in case you can't get down there, by the way. You see them everywhere. And they're great because what they do is they do a lot of awareness of all the battlefields in that area. And we'll let him tell us all about what he does. But I think it's something that you see them and it just brings it, you realize you're where you want to be. So, Chris, I guess tell us a little bit about, Civil War Trails, how you got started and how the whole organization and what you guys do.
Absolutely. And I will say on that brochure front, no need to go to eBay. Go to our website. We'll send you the brochures we have on. That's true. Civil War Trails got started in 1994 in a way that all good history projects do. A bunch of historians were sitting around drinking and decided they wanted to mark the route between when the retreat from Richmond started and where it ends at the end of the Civil War. So it started as a network of 12 sites telling that story of Lee's retreat. And from 1994, those humble beginnings, we are now over 1,350 sites across 6 states. So if you like superlatives, Civil War Trails is the world's largest open-air museum, covering just a nudge over 220,000 square miles. So each of those sites on the program is brought to us by a community. Folks come to Civil War Trails to tell the stories that they have there in their story. What makes us a little bit unique. We don't go hunting for stories, they come to us, which is kind of a nice privilege to have. And we're honored every time that someone comes to us with a new story. The other thing that makes Civil War Trails unique is our product is designed to be updated constantly. Our stories are always changing, new research, new images. One of the things our team loves the most is when someone comes out of an attic that's not been opened in decades and has a new image for us or has a new journal. So the upshot we have is Civil War Trails is a living, breathing product and one that we're always happy to work with new communities and to tell more diverse, unique, personal stories that maybe haven't been seen before. A lot of our sites, we're the only interpretation there. So it's a really unique opportunity we have being grown by really the 6 state tourism officers that we work with. 5 we work with very closely. And we, speaking of Gettysburg, you mentioned earlier, we are just expanding into Pennsylvania now, and that's been really exciting. But we're all over, like you said, we're pretty ubiquitous. It's one of those things where once folks know to look for that bugle, it's everywhere. So it's one of the things we're always happy to be a part of any conversation, and it's a lot of fun. I'll say personally, I came onto trails at the beginning of 2018, and I have never been to so many cool little towns that I had never heard of in my life. That's one of the other things people look to trails for. We are a great gateway to local hikes, local beer, local food, because we're right there with it. So that's one of the things I'll say for your listeners. If anyone's looking to travel for the Civil War and they want to know where the good barbecue is, where the best local beer is, or for my coworker, where the best pickles are, we'll get you there, because that's part of our job on the road too.
Well, that's definitely something that we enjoy here at the podcast for sure. Definitely the beer, the history, and all that, and the hiking, and yeah, probably the pickles too, I think.
we'll get Mary. He's got my dream job, Mary. He does.
I know.
He's
Mine too. Mine too, actually.
So I know one of the challenges, and anybody who works in a nonprofit, a 501c3 is what they call it here, is obviously the fundraising. And so one of the things we're going to be doing, we're going to talk a lot about this over these next couple of weeks anyway, is the contest we're going to have to raise some money for you guys. And I know, what challenges do you have, Chris, going through this as far as fundraising for you? I know you guys are crossing state lines, so it's not like you can get a lot of state money. What challenges do you guys have in just raising money to do the stuff you do?
Civil War Trails, as far as funding stands, is a pretty unique beast. We're a footprint-wise very large organization, but myself and my coworker Drew Gruber are the entire full-time staff to cover those 6 states. We stay busy, and the way we're supported is each one of our Civil War Trails signs has an annual sponsor. For a fairly low nominal fee every year, that supports the entire sign. If it's damaged by a snowplow, if the content's out of date, we need to update that. If one of the highway signs gets taken out, we take care of all of that for just $200 a year per sign across the whole program. So it's a very lean program. If you run that whole budget out over 1,300 sites at $200 a site, we're very lean for the size organization we are. So normally we do pretty well. Our funding typically actually comes, you would think, from local historical groups, but more often than not, it's the local tourism entity that supports us because they see the value in travelers coming through to see those sites. The struggle comes when small municipalities have a hard year with things like hotel tax, which the last year you might understand was a little bit of a struggle with hotel taxes. So things do get a little bit tight there. And then, some of these sites, while we're very excited about them, there's maybe not a local tourism entity. I'll say some of our more rural sites, the local tourism entity is the sheriff's office. So tourism can be kind of a struggle in some areas, and that's where we get into a little bit of a struggle occasionally financially at some of those sites.
So it's interesting because I know a lot of those signs, and I know not just the highway signs, but those interpretive signs, the next to the historical sites, is they're giving you guys money, but it doesn't seem like they're interested in putting their name on it. Because I remember there's no advertising on this, right? So this is more or less just giving back to you guys for whatever they feel that is the reason why, correct?
Absolutely. It is a voluntary yearly contribution, which is great when things are going well, but we're an easy line item to cut in a budget if it comes to that. That being said, we don't brand because we have partners that run the gamut of organizations. So branding, we've found in the past, we have some great partners that we love to death, but they change their logo about every 5 minutes. And that would be hard for us financially to keep up with. So lack of branding keeps us a little more current that way. But yeah, absolutely. It is a voluntary annual elective, our funding.
And do you have private donors as well, like just kind of individuals who will say every year, donate the $200 that's needed, and then?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
We have. We're very eternally grateful to our private donors that every year, a sign that they're passionate about, a general that they really love, who's at a site that maybe needed a little bit of love, they're happy to jump in. Folks who sponsor signs, quite frankly, in some cases in their own backyards, that folks come and see. So yeah, it's a lot of fun talking to those folks.
So is there like a different level of a couple $100 is the highway sign, more money is that interpretive sign? How do you guys stratify your different ways to do it?
We don't. So that $200 a year covers an individual interpretive sign. So for that $200 a year, we maintain all those highway signs that point to that interpretive sign.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's very cool. Wow.
I think you guys could be charging more money. Just saying.
Well,
I don't know who your CFO is, Chris, but you may have to go word with them.
So we're doing okay, but yeah, we certainly don't want to stress our partners any more than we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you approach a place? So this very historical place that a lot of stuff happens. Say I didn't notice one at the Pine Thicket in John Wilkes Booth's escape a couple of years ago. Okay. Sure. And so I believe it or not, I looked for him. Okay. And I didn't see one. So if there's a place that's got a lot of history to it, how do you approach a place like that when you want to put a sign there? Do you wait till they come to you, or do you go to them and say, look, this is a place we really should have a sign. What do you think? How does that work?
So I would say 90% of the Civil War Trail signs that are out there in the world are someone coming to us, be it a property owner, a local historical society, local genealogical society in some cases will come to us and say, hey, we really want to tell this story because we have a passion about it. That's 90% of how we put signs up. There are occasionally, as you know, our staff are huge Civil War nerds, stories we really want to tell. Mm-hmm. We will occasionally go to property owners and pitch having a Civil War trail sign at their site. But I would say 90% of it is folks coming to Civil War trails, which if you ever have a story you really want to tell, our website's right there for you. We'll take care of you there. But I'd say 90% is folks coming to us to tell their stories.
That's really cool. Like,
is there any places, you know, along that vein, you've gone to places and they've said, you know what, I just don't have no desire to do this. I don't want you to do it. Has that ever happened?
You know, it does happen occasionally, and I will say more often than not, that concern is not rooted in the history. It's more often than not rooted in, I don't want folks coming by here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Mm-hmm. Because I will say we are an internationally marketed product. Not only do we market our sites, but the state tourism offices in the states we work in market us internationally. So folks will come by. I've talked to some folks at very rural historic houses that have Civil War trail signs that say, you know, someone was out there reading that in the middle of the night the other night. And, you know, they're grateful to have that guest, but we do caution folks that you're going to get people here for at all times of the year. But yeah, the hesitation we don't see very much. And that does come from the root of folks coming to us with stories as opposed to the other way around.
That's a great way to keep the history alive too. Like, just you get these people who own these properties now and they want to be able to tell the stories. I know, like, you know, in Sharpsburg where one of my friends lives, like there's some people that live on some, like, I think it's in McClellan's headquarters and it's private property. Like, you can't go on it. You just have to kind of look at it from afar.
Yeah. and those folks are some of our best ambassadors.
Yeah.
They're you know, helping us get directions to the next town or whatever it may be. Those folks are some of our best ambassadors.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the situation when somebody comes to you and says, you know, my great-great-grandfather told us that William Sherman came through here on his march to the sea, and you're going to tell him he wasn't within 100 miles of here and you can't have a sign? Does that ever happen?
I will say not in my memory. I'll say things like that do happen occasionally, but I'll say we meet every person who writes to us with any story with nothing but unbridled enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And folks, even if we have to occasionally tell them, like, that's an amazing story, I wish I could have talked to your grandfather about that, but unfortunately everything we see, it just doesn't get there. And then we'll often ask for sources as well. We love folks bringing us stories. We have a historian who's a part-time historian currently on retainer who we work with for every sign. So while folks do bring us stories, we also do make sure we vet those stories to make sure that everything we're putting out there is verifiable. And one of the things we love, which I'd love if your listeners are ever out in the field, if you read a Civil War trail sign that you know is not factual or kind of bigger sometimes, doesn't excite you, please let us know. We love that feedback. There's 2 of us and 1,300 of them. So we love that feedback.
See, Mary, I told you he wouldn't do a Battle of Shrewd Farm sign. I told you he wouldn't.
Jeez.
I really want to.
We haven't got to that episode yet.
That'd be a good one.
I've heard so much about it.
Is there any place, like in your mind, like your dream scenario, I just got to have a sign there? I wish someday we could put a sign in this place and there just isn't one.
I mean, we always have our eyes on expanding territory. But I will say some of the sites that I get really excited about are ones that I didn't know about until 10 minutes ago. We have folks who come to us with stories that are, I mean, you look at them on a map today and you wonder how you'd end up there today, let alone how you'd end up there with 100,000 guys with you in the 1860s. And just what we like to talk about in our office sometimes are the hold my beer moments of the Civil War. And those are some of my absolute favorite sites. And it's hard to narrow them down. I mean, we've got places in North Carolina and we've gotten signs in these days. But we've got a site in North Carolina that I love where a guy picks up a burning stake out of a barrel, out of a tar barrel, and tries to burn down a Confederate ironclad by swimming to it, which is just a really amazing story. But we're also doing really, really neat stuff that we've never done before. Last month, we put in a sign that encourages you to paddle by Frederick Douglass's birthplace. That's one we've been working on for a while because you can't access it by land anymore. but you can absolutely paddle by it and think about what his life would have been like. So there are projects we definitely work towards, but it's folks are bringing us new stuff all the time, and that's the most exciting stuff.
A lot of the focus on the Civil War, some of has been not positive, it's been negative. Do you catch any grief to take your signs down? Any of the Confederate ones in the South?
It's always a sticky topic when we're talking Civil War, but I will say Civil War Trails is pretty uniquely positioned. The communities our signs are in are the communities who wrote those signs. If that sign didn't work for that community, we change it. That's the upshot we have as well, is I can get a new insert in a sign in a very short order, and we can update it and make it work for the people who live there as well as for the traveler. I would also say our style guideline is what happened here on that day at that time. Here's a person who was here. That is what people want to learn, especially with everything that's happened in the last couple of years politically around the Civil War. Folks want to know what happened. And if you write in a style guideline that puts you in the footsteps of the people who were there that day, that's what people want to go learn. The upshot we have is we can't be downloaded. You have to go and stand in those footsteps, and that's what people really want to know. So I would say we really haven't had any struggles with that.
That's good to hear.
Well, I think that's the important thing too, is like I know right now being in Canada, I still can't travel to the US, but just the whole, I don't know, the fact you can't be downloaded, that's just going to I want to go see them now.
Absolutely.
So it's encouraging
that's the goal.
It's encouraging the travel, which is awesome. And I think because you're in places that might not necessarily get talked about, that's really great too, to tell the stories that don't necessarily get told as much. I know one of the things that doing this podcast over the last, I guess it's been 10 months now, I've been able to look at battles that I wouldn't have looked at necessarily. And I would imagine that's the same for you guys too. You get to see stuff that might not necessarily get told. And those are sometimes, as you said, the hold my beer moments, the most interesting things about the Civil War.
And I love our big campaign stories. I mean, our Gettysburg campaign's ever popular. I mean, our Shenandoah Valley stuff, but it's those little side stories in the textbooks. I mean, we were talking about before we got started, we were talking about Williamsburg. Williamsburg is a side story for the Peninsula Campaign, but there's so many cool stories that are out there ready to be told. And this is a really cool opportunity to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what 6 states are you guys in right now?
So we're in Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and a couple counties in Pennsylvania. We've just really started getting into Pennsylvania.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, Tennessee. I'm Chattanooga, Chickamauga are two of my favorite.
Nashville too.
Yeah,
beautiful areas. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Nashville signs too, definitely. Yeah. Those ones are a little fuzzy reading those ones, by the way, Chris. But I did read them.
Well, it's Nashville. That's
Nashville. Exactly. But there's been so many times, we're driving on some dirt road and you have to lock up the brakes as you see one of those signs and you got to pull over and see it. I'm probably, God knows how much brake repair I've had to do in my car since I've been reading your signs. But that's the thing about it, though. For people like us, it's a moth to the flame, those signs when you see them. But for a lot of people, I think it's great because I think they read them and it just, to your point, that hold my beer moment that, and it's just straight history. It's not superlatives. It's not any sort of memorial, but it really gives you an idea of, wow, this really happened here.
Yeah, and there's some great sites for that. There's one not far from where we're based. There's one out at a winery in Newkirk County, Virginia. That's part of Stewart's Ride Around.
Oh, cool.
And what happens at that winery in the 1860s is they find a liquor depot that the Union had, and his troopers break into it, and they thoroughly enjoy themselves. And that sign sits right in front of the winery today. So we get folks who will read that sign at the winery and they'll jump on that trail, and they're not driving it the right direction, but they get there. And it's getting those folks who aren't necessarily there for the history hooked on that history, and then they'll stop at all the other ones they come across. And it's a really cool thing to see.
I think that's really cool to be able to, you could be sitting having a glass of wine at that winery, or like what Darren was doing where was it, Darren, 1781?
Where Stonewall Jackson got his arm cut off.
Yeah, like that.
Right there.
That to the two of us is just so cool to be able to do that. You immersing yourself in that kind of history, but you're having fun with it. And I think this is what we really like about what what you guys are doing is, you're telling the story, but people are able to have fun with it along the way. And if you can make history fun, people are they're gonna learn more if they can have an adventure while they're doing it.
And that's just the thing. We love telling these stories in that very human way, and it's not watering down the history. It's just making it relatable to your guest who's standing there, and that's the cool, fun thing.
Yeah, and that's what we like to do in the podcast too, is make it relatable, make these guys human, and just tell their story, especially the ones that don't get told as much too.
Yeah.
No, we say all the time, we try to humanize these. We tell the human stories. The Civil War wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. No. And people need to realize that, and being able to go to these places and just sit in the same, walk in the same footsteps as these people, but not just the generals and the Lees and the Meads and all that, but the average soldiers, the grunts who snuck beer in the camp, and this is where they were, because those are the people, those are these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids pulled from their homes, and this is their first time. And so those are the stories that a lot of cases really need to be told. And those tend to get washed away in the history books because they're not high enough on the food chart. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and I will say our format really leads to that. We've got, on a good day, 250 words to tell that story. And a really good example of making that relatable, there is a sign on South Mountain Battlefield up in Maryland. You could drop your phone and hit the Appalachian Trail from where this sign is. It's right on the trail. And instead of trying to unpack the Battle of South Mountain in 250 words, which would be just about impossible, we talk about the guys who came through there. Because at the end of the day, what is a Civil War soldier if not a backpacker? Carrying everything with them. And there's a really awesome quote right there about a civilian who watched these guys come through. And all she talks about is how much these guys stink. And that's the sign. And we talk about these guys coming through there. They're through hiking effectively. And the civilians go, oh man, these guys reek. And you know what your experience standing there is? A through hiker comes past you and he reeks. And he reads that sign and thinks that's the funniest thing he's ever read and keeps on hiking. So it's making it relatable to those who are going to come across that story. And you know what? The next time they will stop. And if that sign is about mead, all right, they'll give it a minute. They'll learn about mead in a way they maybe wouldn't have before.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the details of our fundraiser here towards the end. But besides the fundraiser, what are some different ways that people I know you kind of hinted at it, but different ways they can help you guys out? I know, it was news to me. I didn't realize you could sponsor a sign. That's really, really cool. I didn't know that. And you guys are good about it. You don't over promote yourselves, but I guess, you do in a way, but I guess what are some ways that people, if they don't want to pay a couple $100 for a sign, I know you guys don't, I've had this ongoing thing with you guys about getting a hat. I've always wanted a Civil War Trails hat, but you guys don't really sell the merchandise. What are some other ways people can participate if they don't want to spend that much money, but still help you guys out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, though our private sponsors are lovely, but we don't expect anyone else to do that can't do it. We wouldn't ask you to. But one of the biggest ways folks can help is interact with us on social media. Tell us, we saw this really cool sign, tag us in that. But also, our emails are on our website. Mine, if you want to reach me, is administrator@civilwartrails.org. If you're out there and you see a sign that's in bad shape, or a sign that you started reading and it bored you to tears, or your non-history friend read and it bored them to tears, let us know. That's the biggest thing folks can do to help. We are, if nothing, not crowdsourced. We love feedback, and we do what we can to get there when we can. But as I mentioned earlier, there's two of us to keep eyes on 1,300 signs. Things fade, things get damaged. Our program's designed to live and breathe and be repaired, but we need to know when it needs a repair. As your listeners are out traveling around, if folks see us in the field or see our product in the field, take a selfie, tag us, let us know if you have a cool story you think would be great, or if you see something that needs a little bit of help out there. That's the biggest way folks can help us out.
Now, you personally, what is some? You must have some cool experiences yourself. Reading your website, I guess they don't involve oysters apparently. And as a Cape Cod guy, it's kind of weird to see that because everybody up here, that's what they do. But you must have some personal experiences that are pretty cool work. You've been there since 2018, so you've been there a couple of years now. I know 2020 was kind of that was a year off for most people. But you must have some cool experiences, some stories to tell. You must have at Civil War Trails.
Oh, no, absolutely. I've done some things that I never thought I would in my entire life do, having been out on the trail. And a lot of it comes down to just meeting some really cool people out on the road. But I mean, recently we did a sign that we installed amphibiously. We did an amphibious landing in Maryland to put a sign in on an island in the middle of the Potomac. That was a really fun,
That's
cool
so
day.
cool.
And there's the day we chased from Nashville all the way to the Alabama border, the Army of Tennessee on their way out. We were doing some maintenance, and just how it worked out, we followed them. And it was a cold day. It was the dead of winter. It was kind of cool to get that experience of, oh no, we were in our truck, which is a little bit different, but we got the experience of being in those spots kind of there. I was not too long ago in Franklin, Tennessee on the day of the anniversary of the battle and walked around with some really, really amazing local content experts and got to go to a couple of the houses, historic houses that are still there, that they put luminaries out for all the soldiers who died in that battlefield, and you can see it from miles away. So meeting content experts, meeting folks who have contributed to these stories in all kinds of ways out in the field, and then just kind of really neat places that I would not have expected to go to. And there's a distillery in North Carolina that we held a meeting at for some partners recently and talked to the coolest distiller I've ever met. You never know who you're going to meet on the trail, and that's the case for us as well as for our visitors. We just never know who we're going to meet and where that's going to go. I've been installing signs at 8 a.m, and the guy across the street opens up his barbecue restaurant for us because he sees us checking out his smokers. Those are always fun, cool things. So there's never a dull moment on the trail, and that's something we definitely try and help folks find as well.
So you guys physically put the signs in yourselves? You don't have contractors do it?
We have a guy who's been helping us out since 1996 who does a lot of our installs with us. That man can make an array of 8 signs look perfect and perfectly spaced and around a curve in a way that I have never seen a human being be able to do. But he's a part-time contractor with us. He helps us out immensely. But as far as full-time staff goes, it is just my colleague and myself. We have a part-time historian, and our contractor helps us with installs.
So are you the one who's going to reach out to the towns and say, I want to put this road sign up, and they're going to approve it in their town council and all that crap?
That depends on what town and what state. That is all wild regulations that vary immensely. There's a independent city, which is a fun Virginia thing, about 10 minutes from me that has different rules than the county I live in. So it's all different.
I remember the one you guys have in front of the Lee headquarters in Gettysburg. Yeah. I had one of those, how do they get this sign approved moments? Because I never thought in a million years Adams County would let you do that. But it's perfectly placed right in front of Lee's headquarters. So that was there's not a lot to your point, in Pennsylvania, but it's growing. Virginia, Maryland, you see them all over the place, which is great. But they're great to see. They really are, because it's certainly, it's kind of the Civil War world is quite a kind of unique fraternity we all have. And so when you see that, it's like I said at the beginning, it's like it's welcoming you back to where you're supposed to be. So we definitely enjoy it. So our fundraiser, we're going to talk about that real quick, and then we'll get ready to wind down here. So we are going to be doing a fundraiser for the Civil Breakfast Club, where we're going to be raffling off a handful of books. And Mary will tell the books, because immediately I forgot some of them because she's in charge of that. So what people will do, people will donate money directly to Civil War Trails. And Chris is going to talk about that, I think, about how he's going to make that happen. And what'll happen is the people who are donating money just simply email us to the Civil War Breakfast Club at info@civilwarbreakfastclub.com. The copy of your receipt, you'll be entered into a raffle. The more you put in, the more you have to win. So we've had people put in as much as $50, the ABT. So hopefully that works out as well. Mm-hmm. And then what we will do in a couple of weeks, we will go ahead and we will announce the winners. And Chris, you're certainly welcome to join us at our Facebook Live when we do that. If you want to, if you're around, you have nothing else to do. Not obligating you, putting you on the spot, but if you want to participate, we can certainly hook you up and help with that. So how can it go mechanically as far as how people are going to be able to do this for you guys, as far as helping you guys get paid?
Absolutely. So the way we're going to work that is through PayPal. Which is a fairly new thing for Civil War Trails. We're slowly dragging us into the 21st century. But our PayPal you can find, and we'll come up with a link maybe to put in somewhere. We'll share that out. We'll also put that on our social media when this goes live. We'll make that available. That's the way you can get to us through there. I think that's what we kind of worked out mechanically. Mm-hmm. That sounds right.
Yep.
So what we'll do is we'll put a link on the Facebook and the Twitter and all that stuff, social, I call it Instagram, the other one. and people can pay that directly, and we'll tag that up there as well, so they can go ahead and get that paid directly. And I think it's going to work out well, because I think people, people love the work you do. I know I do. I know Mary does. I know everyone I talk to, you see it, and you just feel like it's where you're supposed to be. And those signs are great because they're always updated. I've never seen one that's cracked or smashed up, so that's good. And it seems like wherever I go, different places, I see different signs as well. And I love seeing the ones on the side of the highway, just the Civil War trails, just driving along. Because you could be completely lost, but you're going the right way when you see one of those signs wherever you're ultimately going.
Exactly.
So I've always said that as well.
And there's probably beer nearby too.
It's close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other big thing too, is you mentioned before about the local restaurants and pubs and things like that as well. So for people who are near and dear to our heart, Mary, who like to sip on Grandpa's old cough medicine from time to time, it's going to be able to give you a place to go and help support that local economy as well. So not only are people going to be able to fundraise to help Civil War trails, but they're going to in turn visit these places and help their local economy as well.
Yeah,
so at the end of the day, everybody wins.
Exactly, and that's what's needed more than ever as we recover from post-pandemic kind of thing, to get out and travel and support the local economy, support organizations like Civil War Trails, get out, travel again, go for hikes and all that, have some beer at the end of the hike, and hopefully see some Civil War Trail signs along the way and learn something as we go.
I'd be like Mary and have beer during the hikes, but that's another story. But you got to stay hydrated. In her defense, you got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to carb load when you're hiking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, any final words you want to say to anybody who's going to be listening to this? You did a great job telling your story, and I think it's a great one. But is there anything else that you feel like you want to say, get off your chest, and we can get ready to get started with this?
I will just say, anything you guys want to do as far as reaching out to us, the support we immeasurably are thankful for, but just thank you guys for everything. And if you ever need anything, travel advice, any advice about how to get to our sites, just reach out. We're always there to help out. Well,
I want a hat. You're going to sell those hats.
I want a hat too.
Make that happen so we can buy a hat from you. So that's what I want to do. We've got a great logo. All right. Well, Chris, hey, thanks for joining us. I think we can call it a night here. I think this is a good story to tell. So we will be officially announcing this contest tomorrow. We're going to be doing a Civil War Roundtable, the Civil War Breakfast Club, and we're going to be doing trivia night as well. But we're going to be announcing this officially, and we're going to be kicking this thing off. So hopefully you'll start to see some deposits kicking in by the weekend. And we'll run this for a couple of weeks, and we'll go with that. And then we'll keep you in the loop as far as when we're going to announce the winners. And like I said, no pressure. If you want to join us, you're certainly welcome to, but you don't have to. And then we'll go from there. We'll see how it does, and then we'll hopefully have a great, successful story to tell when this is all done, and hopefully get you at least a couple new signs. That's the goal.
Yeah. Would you like me to announce the books before we sign off?
Yes. Good segue.
Okay. So we are going to be the books that we have so far. We're still waiting for confirmation on one. We don't know for sure if we're going to get it, but there's a few we can officially announce. So the first is Dim White Light by a name that is very familiar to our listeners, Eric Scheinlein. I probably butchered it. I'm sorry, Eric. But we're going to be reading his book, auctioning off his book, Dim White Light. The next one is Nameless and Faceless Women of the Civil War by Lisa Samia. Three Cornered War by Dr. Megan Kate Nelson. The Real Horse Soldiers by Dr. Timothy Smith. And the most recent Meade biography by Dr. Kent Masterson Brown.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is a good one. That book is a hot book. It's new. Everyone's looking to buy that one, so we're going to have that. And all these authors have been great friends of the podcast, and they've been very good to us, and so we're happy to support them. So even if you don't win, go ahead and buy the books and do that, and then obviously continue to donate to groups like the Civil War Trails, because I think at the end of the day, our goal it's a small role, but our role and our goal is to help foster these people in these places and keep these places alive. So our great grandkids down the road can still see these signs.
Yeah, and learn the history.
Think how cool they'll look in a couple 100 years, Chris. How cool these signs are going to look.
And also to encourage our listeners when you're out there, like Chris said, let them know if there's a sign that is in repair, but also post a selfie and tag them. And what's the social media? Yeah, and tag Civil War Breakfast Club as well. We'll retweet it. But what's the Twitter handle for you guys?
We're at Civil War Trails pretty much everywhere. So anywhere that there's social media, that's where you'll find us.
Awesome. Yeah. So make sure you tag them in pictures and stuff, and just kind of let more people know that these are signs are out there for people to go and explore the history, and in some ways very unique history and the lesser known stories as well.
And for the people listening, the Civil War Trails, these are the people who we want to support here, because these are the ones who are telling the story. The more funding they get, the more signs they can put up, the more people can learn. And the goal is to convert that one person at a time who isn't a big history person or reads it and finds that human story they connect with. And then it kind of grows from there. And that's what the whole thing is all about. And at the end of the day, that's all of our jobs to go ahead and keep doing that. So Chris, hey, thank you for joining us on this Tuesday night. I know it's a busy day for you. I'm sure at the end of the day, you've got other things you want to get to now, but we certainly appreciate having you on. And we're gonna do well by you guys, and hopefully it works out well. Hope you had some fun tonight too.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Oh, it was definitely a lot of fun. And to our listeners, hope you all have a great evening. And this episode, you'll notice it's going to drop a little bit sooner than we usually drop episodes, but.
And I've never heard you not swear in an episode, Mary. This is the first time for you.
It is.
Wow. She's respectful of the guests when she doesn't swear. We've got other guests and she's sworn. So, Chris, she really likes Civil War Trails. So that's fantastic. So anyway, Mary, again, great time as always. We look forward to talking to you soon. Chris, the pleasure again. It was ours. It really, really was. And you guys do great work. Keep doing what you're doing. And like I said, I'll be back in Gettysburg here in a few months, and I cannot wait to see that first sign. Because again, when I see that sign, I know I'm home. That's the deal.
Anyway, have a great evening, guys, and see y'all later. Peace out.
Good night.